Have you ever wondered why cemetery workers follow such precise, seemingly outdated rituals when tending to graves? Why they insist on certain flowers, specific times of day, and particular arrangements that make no sense in our modern world? Marcus thought he knew. 37 years old, newly hired as head groundskeeper at Millbrook Cemetery after the previous keeper died suddenly. The pay was good, the work honest. How hard could it be to maintain a 100-year-old graveyard? The job came with a thick manual, handwritten pages yellowed with age. Traditional maintenance practices, the cover read in faded ink. Marcus flipped through it that first morning, coffee steaming in the crisp October air, salt circles around certain graves, specific flowers planted in precise patterns, iron stakes driven exactly 3 feet deep at cardinal points around the oldest section. Superstitious nonsense, he decided. The kind of outdated thinking that kept cemeteries looking like museums instead of peaceful parks. Marcus had ideas: modern landscaping, efficient maintenance schedules, solar lighting to replace those creepy old lanterns. He started small, removed the iron stakes first, rusty things that looked like medieval torture devices scattered throughout the grounds. The metal screamed against the earth as he pulled them free, leaving dark holes that seemed to breathe in the morning mist. Next came the salt. White rings around dozens of graves, refreshed weekly according to the manual's precise instructions. Wasteful and bizarre. Marcus swept it away with his leaf blower, watching the granules scatter into the grass like snow. The changes felt liberating. Modern efficiency replacing ancient paranoia. The cemetery looked cleaner, more welcoming. Visitors commented on the improvements. The cemetery board praised his initiative. Then, the dream started. Not dreams, exactly. Visions that came during those moments between sleep and waking, when reality blurs at the edges. Marcus saw the cemetery at night, but not as he knew it. Older. Wilder. Graves marked with symbols instead of names, mounds of earth that shifted and breathed like sleeping chests. Figures moved between the headstones. Not quite human, not quite animal. They whispered in languages that predated words, their voices carrying promises of things that should remain buried. Marcus woke each morning with dirt under his fingernails, though he showered before bed. His clothes smelled of grave earth and something else, something rotting. The manual sat on his kitchen table, pages fluttering in windows he didn't remember opening. He found himself reading passages he'd dismissed before, warnings about the old compact, instructions for maintaining the barriers, references to those who came before the dead. One entry made his blood run cold. Should the traditional protections fail, the sleepers beneath will wake. They who were bound by salt and iron, by flower and flame, will remember their hunger. The living must restore what was broken, or join what was buried. Marcus laughed, but the sound came out hollow. Folklore. Ghost stories meant to keep groundskeepers in line, following pointless tradition out of fear rather than reason. But walking through the cemetery that afternoon, something felt different. The air hung heavier. Shadows stretched longer, even in broad daylight. The grass over certain graves looked yellowed, as if something beneath was draining the life from the soil. He found Mrs. Patterson, a regular visitor, standing frozen beside her husband's grave. Her face was pale, eyes wide with terror. "There's something wrong," she whispered. "I can hear them moving down there, scratching at the wood." Marcus pressed his ear to the headstone, expecting silence. Instead, he heard it too. A soft, rhythmic scraping, like fingernails against coffin lids. That night, he returned to the manual with desperate attention. The handwriting seemed to shift in the lamplight, words rearranging themselves into new warnings. Salt forms barriers against the restless dead. Iron pins their essence to the earth. Specific flowers carry protective properties passed down through generations of death workers. Every tradition had purpose. Every ritual served as a lock on doors that were never meant to open. Marcus grabbed his truck keys, racing to the hardware store before it closed. Salt, iron stakes, the exact flowers listed in the manual's appendix. He worked through the night, following the instructions with religious precision. But some things once awakened don't sleep easily. The first grave cracked open on a Tuesday. Not dramatically, not with the theatrical flair of movie scenes. Just a thin line across the earth, like a smile carved in dirt. Marcus filled it with salt, planted protective herbs in careful patterns. The crack sealed itself by morning. 2 more opened the next day, then 5, then dozens. The scratching grew louder. Visitors reported cold spots, whispered voices, shadows that moved independently of their sources. The cemetery board received complaints. People stopped coming. Even funeral services moved to other locations. Marcus worked frantically, following every instruction in the manual. But, for each protective measure he restored, 2 more graves showed signs of disturbance. The earth itself seemed to rebel against his efforts, rejecting the salt, corroding the iron stakes overnight. He called the number listed for the previous groundskeeper's family, desperate for advice. The voice that answered was old, tired. "My father warned this would happen eventually," the man said. "The compact weakens with each generation. People forget why traditions exist. They think progress means abandoning the wisdom of the past." "How do I stop it?" Marcus asked. "You can't. You can only slow it down. Keep them sleeping a little longer. The barriers were never meant to be permanent. They're just delays." The line went dead. Marcus stands in the cemetery now, watching the sun set behind the old section where the disturbances started. Fresh salt circles gleam white in the fading light. Iron stakes stand sentinel between the graves. Protective flowers bloom in patterns that hurt the eye to follow directly. The scratching has stopped, for now. The cracks have sealed. The whispers have faded to barely audible murmurs. But Marcus knows the truth the manual never explicitly stated. The dead aren't the ones being kept in the ground. Something else sleeps beneath the cemetery, something that existed before the first body was buried here. The graves aren't just resting places for the deceased. They're weights, anchors holding down something that should never see daylight again. Every night, Marcus walks the grounds with his salt and iron, maintaining traditions he finally understands, not out of respect for the dead, but out of terror for what lies beneath them. The manual sits in his truck, pages turning in windless air, adding new instructions in handwriting that look suspiciously like his own. Some knowledge comes with a price. Some jobs choose their workers rather than the other way around. And sometimes, the only thing standing between the world and unimaginable horror is one person with a bag of salt and the wisdom to follow rules they don't fully comprehend. The next time you visit a cemetery, pay attention to the groundskeeper. Notice the patterns in their work, the seemingly random placement of flowers and stones. Remember that some traditions exist not because they make sense, but because forgetting them would cost more than anyone should have to pay. Marcus learned this lesson well. He maintains the barriers faithfully now, following every instruction with religious devotion. Because beneath Millbrook Cemetery, something vast and patient continues to dream of the surface world. And the only thing keeping it asleep is the dedication of one terrified man who finally understands that progress isn't always an improvement. The manual grows thicker each night, filled with warnings written in his own trembling hand.